what the city is talking about, the news that impacts you. Welcome to the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Welcome to this edition of the Montreal Now podcast here on CJAD 800. I'm Aaron Rand along with Natasha Hall. This week we'll look at these stories. We all know physical exercise is good for our health, but did you know it's also really good for our brain?
And speaking of your brain, what is better for your brain, reading fiction or nonfiction? And meet a kid who can do something amazing and do it blindfolded, no less. But we begin with this. You've probably heard the term the Great Replacement Theory a lot lately, following the mass shooting in Buffalo last weekend. So let's find out what it really means and what can be done about it.
So we had another mass shooting in America. Of course, this is still very much in the news. In Buffalo, New York, 10 black people as it ended up being gunned down. They're dead. 13 people were shot in total. Oof. And we're finding out, sadly, although we need to know these kinds of things, more and more about the shooter, 18 years old, and went down that rabbit hole of Great Replacement Theory. So we thought we'd try to understand exactly what this is. You've probably heard the term before in white supremacy. Mubin Sheikh is professor of public safety at Seneca College. He's a former CSIS operative, and he's on the line right now. Mubin, thanks for the time this afternoon.
Hey, thank you for having me.
I'm not sure if I'm sort of phrasing this the right way. I've read it described so many different ways. Replacement theory, white replacement theory. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, this is it's otherwise known as the Great Replacement, now the Replacement Theory, and it's this idea spread by white nationalists that basically white culture is being overtaken by non-whites. It was initially, I guess the origins of it is a French author, and then it was then taken up by Marine Le Pen in France, who was the head of the National Front, Russian-funded far-right French organization. That then made it into the U.S. mainstream, and it's just been recycling and cycling ever since.
All right, so what's involved in here? This is simply a fear, and I watched the, the video that was shot by Pat King, I guess, one of the people in the Freedom Convoy. This is an irrational fear that, in fact, other cultures are trying to basically eliminate white people here. Is that the basic bottom line?
That is basically the bottom line, yep. It's the whole idea. It plays into, of course, both anti-Semitic tropes, anti-Muslim tropes, basically that, by immigration, brown people are basically deliberately being brought in by whites. By the way, this is how the theory goes, that you have Jews who are behind it, you have willing whites who are accelerating the destruction of the white race.
So where do we begin to combat this kind of ideology?
Well, I think the first step is to expose the sheer ludicrousness of the theory. Mm-hmm. If you look in Canada and the U.S., I mean, it's still very much a white majority and will be so for a very long time. So calm down, number one. Number two, I think we need to have open conversations on these topics. I mean, we cannot be playing hide and seek with these ideas. When people make these claims, they need to be debunked and responded to right away. Otherwise, people will start to take it literally and then just continue on with it, and then it becomes something terrible. So we all have a responsibility to counter these ideas whenever we hear them. That's the most important step that we should take.
So what I find so interesting about that is, I'm someone who never wants to say the shooter's name because I feel like it glorifies it. And so now that I'm hearing replacement theory said over and over again, I worry about it having the same effect. But you're saying let's not pretend it's not happening. Let's talk about it. Let's face it head on.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, when people don't give a response to this, then this is how it starts to take hold in people.
But
when
do you worry about it being glorified too? Sorry to cut you off there, Mubin, but do you worry about the fact that people hear about it, then they're curious about it, they find out more about it?
Yeah, this is unfortunately, it's like the age-old thing. When the parent tells a kid, don't do X, right. Mm-hmm. Guess what the kid's going to do? They're going to do X. So we need to demystify, these narratives rather than, it is framed around this, oh, look, the neo-Nazis, big scary neo-Nazis, this is what they believe. And people are going to naturally go and at least out of curiosity check it out. But if they have already been, let's say, inoculated with ideas or responses to those things, then when they go and actually engage with it, they'll realize, how absurd it actually is. So inoculation is one way to do it. Another is, of course, after the fact, unfortunately. So if somebody, let's say a young person, like in this case, he was engaging with these ideas already at that young of an age. I mean, certain people saw it. He did go in for some kind of mental health counseling. And the mental health in this in this case is like a catch-all phrase, because he wanted to shoot up the school. It was a graduation or a school-related event. And I'm sure they must have uncovered some of these ideas, but I'm unsure as to how capable they were to deal with it. So we need that capability to actually deal with these ideas, so that when somebody does say this stuff, whether it's in a school setting or wherever, it is responded to immediately.
Yeah, but therein lies the problem, right? We talked about this yesterday, Natasha, right? This idea that we know, and this has happened before. We've found out that someone has gone down that proverbial rabbit hole, come up with these ideas, was spotted at one point or recognized. Police show up and they talk to the person and they said, no, I was just writing this stuff. I was never going to carry it out. And they never, ever get arrested. I mean, you can't arrest them just for thinking that, and they end up, in many cases, being the shooters that commit these mass killings. You kind of wonder, are police's hands are tied here? What can be done?
That's a great question and a great point, because on one hand, when the police do get involved, then some people get upset. They're like, oh, why are the police getting involved? This is thought crimes, blah, blah, blah. So they poo-poo the work that police do, because we expect the police to stop the next shooter. But we don't want to give them the tools or the opportunities to actually prevent this stuff from happening. But this actually leads to an even better question, which is, are the police the people, most capable of doing the prevention work? And I would say no, they're not. I would say NGOs and organizations that specialize in this stuff are the ones that should be engaged to do this sort of stuff. I mean, it requires a long-term engagement with the individual. I work for an organization that does this, parentsforpeace.org, and I do direct interventions with radicalized individuals, whether far-right or jihadist or whatever. In fact, my colleague is a former white supremacist who de-radicalized, and him and I joined forces when we talk to these young people. And it's a long-term investment that's required, and who's going to do that? The average police officer doesn't have the time, nor is it a part of their mandate to even do this stuff. So this is the dilemma that we face, and really I think what we need to be doing is stepping up the capabilities of NGOs, training educators or others who may be in particular contexts where they might see or hear this stuff, and provide them with the narratives to counter this ideology.
The real caveat is that it's not illegal to have these ideas, right? It's illegal to act on them, but how do you prevent the ideas becoming more than ideas and being acted upon? So can we try to, you can't make the ideas illegal, Mubin, but at what point can you intervene?
Very good question. Very good question. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's not illegal to be a neo-Nazi. It's not illegal to be a pro-ISIS member. It is illegal, of course, to act on those views and taking steps towards particular actions. So, most radicalized people who have these ideas actually don't become violent. They just recycle these ideas, they just remain upset and frustrated at the world, and that's it. But of that small percentage that do move over into violence, there are some warning signs that we can identify. And this is not about predicting future behavior, but I want you to think of it like suicide prevention. Somebody who eventually ends up committing suicide, they do show certain signs, giving away their items, ideation, mentioning this to people, what we call leakage. So in the same context, this is how we have to approach it. If somebody is online and they're doing this stuff, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to social media companies to be monitoring this stuff, which they're not doing and which they need to be forced to do. Or number two, it's going to be either intelligence or police services that are going to see that, listen, this guy is talking about killing people, he's glorifying where other people have been killed, they're making statements like, this should happen here. These are the kinds of warning signs. Then you get behavioral steps, purchasing a weapon. So the fact that this young kid went through mental health counseling because of, a mass murder threat and was still able to legally purchase firearms, that's just a recurring problem that the U.S. has in terms of not having even, checks and balances for the most basic, or checks for the most basic things. So those kinds of behavioral things, I mean, in this case also the kid he had previously tried to do reconnaissance in the store. So this is actually part of the terrorist attack cycle where a person will actually, practice or do a dry run. So there are some observable things on the terror attack cycle that can be acted upon and to determine whether a person is going from thought to action.
Mubin, I wish we had more time. I find this also fascinating, but we're out of time. I thank you so much. Appreciate it this afternoon. Thank you.
Most welcome. Thanks for having me.
Mubin Sheikh, former CSIS operative, by the way, now teaching at Seneca College. More questions than answers when it comes to this stuff, right? Which is why it's so terrifying at the same time.
I'll just give out that website that he mentioned that he's involved with again one more time. It's parentsforpeace.org, and it's the number 4, not the spelling out of it. So Parents for Peace.
Informative, interactive, and always interesting. This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Astronomers revealed this week they have found a black hole in the Milky Way, our galaxy. By the way, it's more than 4 million times the mass of our sun, and it's never been seen before. How can it happen? What does it mean? So in the world of astronomy, people who do this kind of stuff and study this sort of science, apparently the find of a black hole in the Milky Way galaxy was the Holy Grail. I saw people reacting to this, very exciting, a lot of people applauding this find, and apparently...
Well, that's our galaxy, right? So we're in the Milky Way galaxy, I think. We'll find out. I think that's our galaxy.
Happy to call it ours if it is. Avery Broderick is with the Delaney Family John Archibald Wheeler Chair at the Perimeter Institute. He's also an associate professor at the University of Waterloo and very much involved in this latest discovery. Mr. Broderick, let's start by talking about just how significant this is.
Hi, Aaron and Natasha. Very happy to be with you. Yeah, so Natasha, you're right. The Milky Way galaxy is our galaxy. So this is our black hole in some sense, right?
Cool.
The supermassive black hole next door, as it were. And we knew there was a dark mass at the heart of our galaxy, and stars orbit that dark mass. And a couple of years ago, Andrea Ghez and Reinhard Genzel won the Nobel Prize for following those stars for 20 years and demonstrating there had to be something there. But just yesterday, I think we confirmed that dark mass is in fact a black hole. It does have that event horizon, that point of no return, after which people stop responding to your tweets.
Okay, pardon my ignorance here, but when I asked you off the top how significant this is, we've always had a feeling this sort of black hole existed. What's the significance necessarily of finding this within our own galaxy, and what does it tell us about, the world?
So 3 years ago, we talked about a black hole that was 54 million light years away, right? So when the light left that black hole to come to us, the dinosaurs had just gone extinct. The one in our galaxy, much closer, also much smaller. At 27,000 light years away, we can see a black hole that's 1,500 times less massive, 1,500 times smaller. And in some sense, where the black hole from 3 years ago was really a heavyweight, very unusual and extraordinary object, the one in our galaxy is, more typical, more common, dare I say pedestrian, if you could ever call a supermassive black hole pedestrian. And, something that's exciting to us is even though these two objects are different in nearly every way imaginable, here we have the black hole in the center of our galaxy, this much more common type of object on a starvation diet, as it were, looks strikingly similar to that more massive, maybe more atypical object from 3 years ago. And that's because what drives that image, that dark shadow, that silhouette of that event horizon wreathed in the bright luminous plasma, that's really gravity, and that's what we're here to study.
I'm realizing that, we're talking about a black hole, and even I'm like, oh, cool, a black hole's been found, and we're finding out all about it, but I don't really actually comprehend what a black hole is. Is it, when you say gravity, and I imagine it as like a void or nothingness, what is a black hole?
Yeah, so it's gravity run amok. If you one of the realizations from Einstein's theory of general relativity, and in fact it was a very early realization, was that if you take that theory seriously, if you concentrate enough matter, there is nothing that will hold it up. It will collapse ever more into a singularity, a point of infinite density, and that is hidden behind. It develops that event horizon, that point of no return that is characteristic of a black hole. And while not everybody is motivated, I suppose, to work through the math, I think most people kind of get the concept, right? The idea of that perfect prison, right? That point of no return, and that's essentially exactly the right idea.
Does that kind of mean, pardon my ignorance again, that if you were to be able to travel to this particular black hole and go all the way inside, you could actually travel in time, like back in time?
Well, so currently, the equations of general relativity do not permit you to time travel after having traveled into the black hole. Of course, one of the great mysteries is because you can't come back. We don't really know what happens inside. And this is one of the motivations, one of the key outstanding questions in modern physics is how do we connect up this theory of the very large, Einstein's theory of gravity, with quantum mechanics, this other extraordinary success story from the 20th century, the theory of the very small and the very cold. And we know they don't match. And maybe your time travel is somehow going to be found when we figure out what the right way to connect these two pillars of modern physics together. And if we find how to connect them, my bet is on we're going to find it around black holes.
And does that mean one day we would send, a probe to try to get some of these answers, or is that not possible?
Feasible, yeah.
Well, it depends on how long you want to wait. 27,000 light years is a long trip.
Oh.
But this is one of the wonderful things about astronomy, is that by peering out into the universe, we're able to access laboratories that are simply impossible to recreate here on Earth. And while we can't interact with them, by carefully studying them, by looking at them over time and carefully modeling them, we can use them to answer these kinds of questions. And that's exactly what the Event Horizon Telescope's all about. We can't travel to the black hole at the center of the Milky Way. It's I've been told by the personnel of the people at the university that I'm not allowed to send undergraduates across black hole horizon, Event Horizon.
Good to know.
There's a lot of paperwork, but nevertheless, we can study them with computers and with telescopes, and that's in some sense the next best thing. And that's one of the reasons why I'm an astrophysicist, because I want to make use of these amazing natural experiments.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing story.
Just
we have to go
wild.
to news. I have one quick question. You said this is 27,000 light years away. How many light years away is Mars? How far is Mars relative to this?
Oh, Mars is something like 20 light minutes or 40 light minutes, right? So
it's a shorter trip.
Way closer.
Just checking. Yes. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it, Mr. Broderick. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
There you go. By the way, didn't I hear if you wanted to go to Mars when we finally send people there, that's still like a 7-year trip, and that's only like a fraction of what it takes to get to a light year? Wow.
My brain can't process this.
There's a lot.
As cool, as astonishing as it is, it still kind of freaks me out.
Asking questions, looking for answers. Here's more of Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
This next segment is a 2-for-1. So first up, we know reading is good for your brain, but does it matter what you read? Turns out, yes, it does. And you're going to meet a Quebec teenager who just broke the world record for doing something blindfolded that, frankly, most of us can't do at all.
Reading is good for you, right? So
Yeah.
let's find out more.
No matter what the age, I think we all know that reading does our brains good, but does it matter what we read? Yes, it actually does. And when it comes to reading fiction or nonfiction, there really is a difference on how our language skills are affected. Raymond Marr is a professor of psychology at York University, and he's done extensive research into this, particularly on how it affects young people's verbal skills. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Marr.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I think before we get into the benefits of like specifically what we read, can you just explain in general why is reading so good for us?
Sure, absolutely. I think reading's good for us for a lot of different reasons, but the most obvious one is that it teaches us about language. I mean, it's predominantly the way that we learn about new words. It's how we learn how to read. And so I think that, children especially benefit from reading when it comes to learning, how to speak and how to read.
Okay, so is that because children are, like, their brains are growing and taking everything in, and so it plays such a pivotal role at that point?
Sure, and absolutely, and also because, they don't have all that much exposure to language. They have conversations, that sort of thing, but by way of, like, structured instruction about how language is, about grammar, that really does come from reading.
Okay. And then let's now delve into your research and how you looked at, I think, 1,000 young adults, right? And the role that fiction plays specifically.
Right, yeah. So, past research has showed that, children that read more for leisure, read for pleasure, they become better readers, and they sort of find it easier to read, and therefore they read more, and they get this sort of upward circle of benefit. So in other words, the rich get richer. The more you read, the better you get at reading. The more you read, and the more your reading ability is improved. And so what we were interested in is whether there's any difference in what you read, and we looked at this in a very broad way, looking at the difference between reading fiction as opposed to reading nonfiction. And what we found across 4 different studies, based on almost 1,000 young adults, is that there was a difference. That fiction had a much stronger association with verbal abilities of all kinds compared to nonfiction.
So then my next question, because I immediately imagine like the way fiction makes your brain kind of, dream, right? Like your imagination comes into play. Is that what's going on? It's the way that it stimulates the brain?
It could be. I will say that we don't know for sure why there is this difference. One possibility is that stories evoke a lot more emotions, and we know that emotions really help us when it comes to our memory. We remember things that are more emotional. It could also be that, stories evoke much more of a rich context, and that sort of more elaborated context really helps us to remember new words, or we might even be more motivated to look up a word that we don't know if we're trying to understand a story, whereby if we're reading, an essay or something, we might just sort of gloss over it, especially if we're reading it for school or for work.
And then I understand that there was a follow-up study done at Concordia University. Was that for like older aged readers?
In that study, it was similar age readers, but we were looking at something slightly different. We were looking at the different motivations that people have for reading, so what motivates them to engage in reading. And what we found was when those motivations were the kind that would push you towards fiction, they tended to have stronger language skills. But if those motivations sort of nudged you towards nonfiction, they actually tended to have worse verbal abilities.
Really?
Oh.
Huh. Okay, so bottom line with this is, I suppose if we're reading and looking to have our brains, our verbal skills improve, it sounds like I could use some verbal skill improvement right at this moment. The idea is you should gravitate towards fiction.
Yeah, I think, for the evidence that we have available, it's definitely the amount of fiction that we read that is the better predictor of all kinds of verbal skills, like, the breadth of our vocabulary, our ability to understand, passages, understand analogies, all kinds of things. So, yeah, I think that would be the take-home message.
Right,
wow, that's fascinating. I never would have thought that. I just would have thought the reading is reading, whether if you're reading fiction or nonfiction. That's fascinating. Thank you so much for the time this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Raymond Marr, professor at York. Do you read mostly fiction or nonfiction?
So it's interesting. Normally, I'm all about fiction, but since I've been getting back into reading, because during the pandemic, I basically haven't been reading. Gotten back into it recently, and I've been reading more nonfiction. But I'm a fiction person, like all the time. Usually.
And I'm mostly a nonfiction
You're a nonfiction
person most
guy,
of the time.
yeah.
But every now and then I'll fall off and read and I like when I read fiction. but just not my first choice.
And we
Typically, I go
both
nonfiction.
started reading more again recently, but both nonfiction.
Yeah, I've started ordering more. I'm not sure if I'm reading more, but it's a first step. So.
I did just order a fiction book, first one in a while.
This is Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
So we should be very proud today, ladies and gentlemen. It turns out a Quebec teenager has broken the national record for this particular thing. That particular thing that I'm describing, ladies and gentlemen, is the Rubik's Cube, or the solving of the Rubik's Cube. Now, I will just tell you that a couple of years ago, I kind of went on this tangent, and I have to figure out how to solve this thing.
Yes.
So I went out and bought a Rubik's Cube, and I looked online, because there's a million different ways, like on YouTube, but people show you how to do it, and I finally got it. But if you ask me to repeat it, unless you kind of do it every day, there's not a chance I would do it, or it would take me like literally days to get it done. It took our next guest a little less time than that. Elliot Kobolansky is on the line. Elliot, thanks for being here this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
How old are you, Elliot?
I'm 17 years old.
And how long have you been working with Rubik's Cubes?
Probably since I was 6.
Wow.
Okay.
And did you get started because your folks were doing it, or what got you interested in it to begin with?
There was just a cube in the house, and I really wanted to learn how to solve it. My parents had nothing to do with it.
So wait, it was in the house as in they bought it for you as like a toy, or just your dad was doing it?
I mean, everybody has a Rubik's Cube in their house, I think, so it was just laying around.
And you thought you'd give it a whirl, and how long did it take you to get to a level where you could say, hey, I'm pretty good at this?
Ooh, quite a few years. I mean, to be honest, I didn't practice nonstop since I was 6. I think I've been really taking it seriously for 3 or 4 years now. So it took, 2 years of pretty consistent practice.
Okay.
So let's make sure we bring the twist into this, because as if it's not enough to solve a Rubik's Cube in under 16 seconds, you're doing it blindfolded. Elliot, when did the blindfold come into play?
I remember the exact date. I think it was April 6th, 2019. It was my first competition that I've ever went to, and there was a guy doing it blindfolded, and I said, okay, I have to do this.
So wait, you went to a regular competition, just happened to see someone doing it blindfolded, and that said, yeah, this is for me?
Yeah.
And then how long from that time that you started doing that until you got good enough to actually compete doing this blindfolded?
It took me about 2 months, and then I was able to do it in like a minute and 30. And then over the next few summers, I shaved my times down to where they are now.
Okay, I need explanations here, Elliot. I can't even begin to fathom. I can't do a Rubik's Cube, period. Never mind blindfolded. How are you able to determine which colors are touching which colors? How do you do this, Elliot?
Okay. I always have trouble explaining this. I'll do my best. So solving it blindfolded is a lot different than solving it normally. And I'm not so concerned with the colors, more about where the pieces have to go. So I have a process where I can turn the cube into about 20 letters. And then if I'm able to memorize those letters, I have a way to transform those letters into moves. And then the colors don't really play into it since everything's letters for me.
Hold on, I'm confused here. So when you say letters, it's kind of you're memorizing if you should go left to right, right to left, top to bottom, bottom to top. What do you mean by letters?
Letters, letters of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I assign one letter to each piece, and then by seeing where the pieces have to go, I sort of just, put letters back to back to back, and then I can memorize those.
Oh my God. Okay,
it's hard to explain. I'm sorry.
So you look at the cube, like just before you begin, you must have a photographic memory. You memorize you assign a letter to each color, you memorize the pattern, and then you're able to solve the Rubik's Cube blindfolded within 16 seconds. Do I have this right, Elliot?
Almost. One, I don't have a photographic memory. It's a lot simpler once you get into it. You're like, okay, there's a trick. But it takes a bit of time. And it's not one letter for each color. It's a letter for each piece. I think there's 20 pieces. So then I'm sort of estimating some stuff, but it's about 20 letters.
So are there, I'm assuming now, if you've broken the record, there are competitions for people with Rubik's Cube specifically doing this blindfolded, I guess?
Yeah. Well, sometimes the blindfolded gets grouped into the regular, and there's competitions for, both regular, blindfolded, as well as some other disciplines like, 4x4 cubes and 5x5 cubes and that type of stuff.
Okay, and so Natasha's mentioned this, you broke the record because it took you only 16 seconds to do it. If you weren't blindfolded, what's the fastest you've ever done it, like the regular way?
I think it was 6.8.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, my God. Okay. Elliot, do you, okay, so you've broken this record. Can you get rich and famous from this?
Oh, of course.
No. Okay. Maybe if you're a really good businessman and you go on, YouTube or TikTok and you start a successful channel and you get a bunch of sponsors. But for me, it's just, it's a hobby that I take very seriously.
What else are you good at, Elliot?
I'm really into jazz piano, and I'm studying that.
Wow.
Also, computer programming.
And will all that be while blindfolded?
Of course.
No. Not necessarily. I'm just saying, once you got the blindfold thing going, maybe that's the way to go. You could do everything blindfolded and be the best at it. So
now I understand you're headed to Korea next year to compete.
Yeah, World Championships is happening in Korea, and as long as there's no big cancellations, I should be going to that.
Now, what's the world record, by the way, for Rubik's Cube?
Rubik's Cube normally 3.47, I believe.
Oh, my gosh.
And blindfolded, is there a record? Beyond the one you have?
I think right now it's 14.61 by one of my good friends, Tommy Cherry, lives in Florida.
Okay, so you've got quite a lot of work to do then, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
Got to shave a second and a half.
Although I've gotten under the world record at home many, many, many times, it's just about doing it officially, getting the right scramble, and turning well.
Okay, well, listen, we wish you a lot of luck. This is kind of crazy.
It's awesome.
Elliot Kobolansky, just over 16 seconds to do the Rubik's Cube to solve it while blindfolded. Good luck trying that at home, folks. Elliot, thank you so much. Let us know how it goes in South Korea when you get done, okay?
All right.
Cool. Take care.
Thank you.
There you go.
Way to go, Elliot.
You've never tried Rubik's Cube to solve it?
Oh, God, I've tried it a gazillion times. I'm totally hopeless.
You just give up, right?
Hopeless.
Okay.
I do it because you always think you're so close, and then you're not. Anyway, no, it drives me nuts.
Got to check it out. Like I said, there's a million solutions. Like a guy's doing this on YouTube showing you how to do it. And there's a great sense of accomplishment, despite the fact that someone showed you exactly what to do, and all you're doing is following instructions. But just to do it and then hold up all the colors, and they're all the same, it's kind of cool. And then never doing it again.
I just watched Elliot's video. Yeah, no, that's mind-blowing.
Okay.
The stories in the news that are worth your time. Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
93% of Canadians believe exercise plays a significant role in their emotional state, their mental clarity, and their well-being overall. Now, while we also understand that physical exercise is one of the best ways to maintain cognitive abilities, it seems what we think and what we do are two very different things. We were talking, I just mentioned briefly about the idea of exercise, being good for you. We all know it's good for you. We're all told you should do it, try to do it, you need to do it. And then we all say, oh yeah, good, great idea. But then, of course, it turns out not all of us sort of follow through. In fact, a large percentage of people don't. Now there's the issue of how actually working out affects your brain health. And this is something that most Canadians do not apparently think about. Josh Cooper is president and CEO of the Baycrest Foundation. They just conducted a major study of this, 1,500 Canadians involved, with some rather interesting results. Mr. Cooper, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So let's talk a little bit about this. Obviously, we know working out, exercising is good for us. Where's the brain component in this? How does it work?
Well, so obviously at Baycrest Foundation, we encourage Canadians to get a head start on brain health from a very early age and consider their own brains in much the same way that we would consider our hearts, our kidney, our livers, our lungs, and our overall body health, because the brain responds positively to a healthy lifestyle.
All right, so the brain responds to a healthy lifestyle, which you would think ordinarily if you said that to somebody, that'd be reason enough to, in fact, start working up. But your study shows that's not the case.
Yeah, only 6 in 10 Canadians actually engage in exercise for the purpose of maintaining brain health. But there are some other takeaways. Like 33% of Canadians have increased their level of exercise since the start of the pandemic. But 92% of Canadians, they do express a willingness to be more physically active if it means preventing cognitive decline. However, they're not all actually taking action on it.
Do we know, by the way, as you describe this, I mean, when you go see, like, take example, you go to see your family physician, how significant do you think is the role when doctors talk to people about how they should stay well and age well of physical fitness? Is it being sort of sent out there enough?
I think that the message is getting out there more and more, and certainly at Baycrest Foundation, we're trying our best to spread a message across Canada that a healthy, active lifestyle is actually good for your brain health. But much like everything else that you hear from your doctor on maintaining your health, it's up to the individual if they choose to listen or not and actually act on it. So it just depends on the individual.
I'm wondering if there's a connection. I mean, there's certainly a connection between exercise and mental health. It does so much for our mental well-being. I'm wondering, though, if there's a connection between doing things as an individual or doing things as part of a group. Because I find when you kind of commit to a group and it's not just up to you to kind of decide whether you're going to do the exercise that day or not, it's a huge motivator. Do you have any information on that, Josh?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's just going to depend on the individual and how much they're actually motivated, be it alone or with a group. And some people clearly prefer to do exercise alone. Some prefer in a group. But 93% of Canadians of all ages do believe that exercise plays a significant role in their emotional state, their mental clarity, and their actual well-being. So the majority of us know it. It's just a question of how much of us actually participate.
You know, it's interesting when I think back. Remember, government of Canada, I guess, for years and years used to have those ads running on TV, the fitness break ads, right? And I'm trying to remember the names, the couple that were there like all the time. So that was
Participation.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Participation was a pretty big deal. Government involvement. It seems that's kind of fallen by the wayside right now. Is part of the reasoning here, do you think, that government should be more actively involved in promoting this?
I think everybody needs to be more active, and you're right. Those old commercials with Hal and I forget her name, but
that's it. Hal with the mustache.
Yeah,
exactly. The good news is that what's good for your heart is good for your brain, and that's one of the messages that doesn't get out enough. So any type of physical activity, healthy diet, a healthy regular diet, anything that is good for your heart is good for your brain. So a Mediterranean diet. All of these things, and certainly what's also good for your brain is a lot of social stimulation, which over the last few years of lockdown have been difficult for a lot of us to maintain that.
It was Hal and Joanne, by the way, Body Break, and they are
Hal Johnson, right?
And they're a couple in real life. They've been married evidently for a gazillion years. So let me ask about that too. You said some people prefer to be to exercise as individuals. Some people prefer to be part of a group. Does your home situation come into play in so much that, like, if you're in a relationship where you're encouraging each other to do physical activities? I'm thinking about my parents who, try to get each other to go on walks. I would imagine that plays a role.
Yeah, socialization has a tremendous role on your brain health, and that's something that was very crucial, especially to seniors throughout the pandemic. And nearly 6 in 10 Canadians, about 58% of the people we surveyed, feel that given the last 2 years of lockdowns, that they look more forward now to their community, to their city, allowing public and recreational events such as cycling and running to come back in person. So again, the numbers show that people want to do more. It's just a question of how many are actually doing more.
What about how to start? Because it seems to me that's always going to be the worst part or the hardest part, right? Is saying, yes, I want to do it, but actually dragging yourself for the first time to go do it. And by the way, I should point out, when I say dragging yourself, you don't need to be going to a gym, because I know your survey found a lot of Canadians have taken up cycling, for example, and that's a pretty healthy way to start.
Yeah, there's a strong connection between exercise and brain health, and our research at Baycrest shows that just 150 minutes of exercise per week will help delay the onset of Alzheimer's and other related dementias. So once you get started, if you could just get up to that 150 minutes a week of exercise, which really isn't very much when you break it down, it does have tremendous benefits to your longevity.
So I'm doing the math in my head. That's 2.5 hours a week. So that would involve
if you break it down by day, it's not much, but somehow it does still seem like a big commitment. And yet I'm thinking, young people were supposed to be limiting their screen time to 2 hours, right? Yeah, kids and adolescents to 2 hours a day. And I bet that, they would benefit way more from having additional physical activity time. And I know your study, didn't talk about kids necessarily, but you talk about younger Canadians and how they are even more likely to have increased their physical activity during the pandemic. Do you think that bodes well for kids going forward? Because there's been so much talk about them, kids just having so much time on screen and not time outdoors playing. Yeah,
it's certainly times have changed from certainly when I grew up. when you would stay outside until the sun would set and people would come out to get you. Now they're sitting inside on screens. It's absolutely better to start at a young age. We're always encouraging people to start at a young age in terms of their overall brain health with exercise, getting off the screens and being outdoors and just doing something healthy, because even the 150 minutes, the 2.5 hours a week, when you break it down and you think about when I grew up, you could stay outside, you could play hours and hours just of road hockey every day. Yeah. So 150 minutes was nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should point out as well, the sort of the paradigm has shifted in a way too, because when I talk about going to the gym, dragging yourself to the gym, there's so many people now, and I know this anecdotally, who do this stuff from home, because you can take an exercise class on Zoom, follow along with someone doing this. You never have to leave your home. You get some bands, you get a couple of weights, you're good to go, right?
That's me with my Pilates class on Wednesdays, and it's made it much more accessible for me, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, and I wonder how many people actually talk about that as their physical activity, whether they even think of that because they're at home doing it. But you know what? The bottom line is the study does point to the fact that, you need to do this. It is not only good for your mental health, it's just plain good for your brain. So hopefully that message gets across. Mr. Cooper, thank you so much. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate being here.
President and CEO of the Baycrest Foundation. They're the ones who conducted this study. But it's true, isn't it? And by the way, it's worth noting as well, and this is maybe an offshoot of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Remember when everyone was going Peloton crazy?
Yes.
Buying those bikes, taking those courses, whatever else, and obviously people at one point decided, okay, that's enough, because the stock has basically gone into the toilet.
That's because Mr. Big died on a Peloton, and so then...
It's what?
Mr. Big died on the Peloton.
Yes, I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. Someone else did, too, in another TV show, didn't
remember?
it? Right.
Yeah, and then there was another... Yeah, I can't remember. Who was the second character?
I don't know, but I'm bringing this up because I know for a fact. So my son-in-law, who has one of these at home, was nuts the first couple of months, like going like a madman every day, getting on, doing the thing, and now it's just collecting shirts.
Oh, no.
And that's what I'm sure happens to a lot of people, right? You get into it, and then it becomes... either because you're going back to work or for whatever reason, you're kind of like, yeah, I'll get around to it tomorrow or the next day.
But the fact that it's there, even though it's just got shirts hanging on it right now, makes it easier to get back to it. Like I'm thinking about my guy and his elliptical. Like sometimes he'll go through a phase where he's doing it every single day, and then sometimes he won't do it for months. Then maybe he only gets back a couple days, but at least it's there, so it's accessible when you do have that switch in your brain to get. No, you're not.
I don't know.
Not sold.
It goes from weeks to months to then longer than months, and it's like, I hadn't been on that in a year, so I better get back on it now. And then you fall off again. It's hard. It's really a mental challenge to force yourself. There's some days you just don't feel like doing it. Bottom line, you got it. There are plenty of days I drag myself to the gym, and I have a gym in my building, and it's still some days.
Oh God, I know.
No. And then there are days you go down there and you work out and you're like, this is the worst workout I ever did. Why did I even bother coming? So it's hard. You really sort of have to focus. It's like a job. It almost has to become that way. So you have to go and you have to spend the time.
But this is why I love walking so much. And I don't walk anywhere near as much as I used to, because walking you do without thinking, right? Like it's exercise. It's so good for you on what?
Well, just as you said that, I thought, no, there's thinking involved. Sometimes I think, I don't want to go for a walk. So there's my thinking in walking. Yeah. Because there's no reward at the end unless you're walking to go buy ice cream.
This is Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Now, I want to get to something our producer Brian Calasar sent me that I thought was absolutely great, because I'm guilty of this as well. Have you seen this story? Someone sharing this, I guess this was on Reddit. Things that people do while waiting for the microwave to beep.
Oh, yes, he sent this to me, too.
This is so good.
This made me think of you when I saw it.
It's so good. So according to, and this is, I guess, from YouTube, not from Reddit, things we do while waiting for the microwave to finish. And the top 10, I guess the top 6 things I have that people do, okay? Yes. Number 1, which one of these is you? You just stand there like a zombie until it beeps.
100% no.
That's not you.
No.
Okay. You stay to make sure you stop with 1 second left so that it doesn't beep.
I have done that, but no, still not the norm.
Number 3, you walk away and try to guess when it'll beep. Again, you might rush back to make sure it doesn't, but that's what your idea is. You think you know how long you put it in for, so you're guessing when it'll go off.
Mm-hmm. Keep going.
Number 4, go as fast as possible and try to clean the whole kitchen before it's ready.
I do that sometimes.
Do you really?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number 5, you put your food in, but you're too impatient, so while you wait, you have a snack.
That's you, isn't it?
And the final one, put your food in, you walk away to do something, but then you forget about it, and find it still in there the next time you go to use it?
No, but yes.
I do that all the time.
I do that all the time. I'll be cleaning the kitchen, or like I'm like trying to get something done before it beeps, and then I'll leave the room, right? So I'll like go to throw in some laundry or something instead, and then it's the beep 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 that it's done. And I'm like, oh yeah, right. I forgot about the microwave. Yeah. Then another 3 minutes later, beep, beep, beep. And I'm like, okay, I'm coming. And it'll do that like maybe 4 or 5 more times before I actually am like, oh yeah, right. I gotta go.
It's great that we all have different ways of dealing with this. I think it's a great list. So whichever is, standing there like a zombie until it beeps, or try to guess when it's going to go off. I do that all the time too. I put stuff in for 20 seconds and in my head I'm counting so I can walk back just as it's about to beep and
you stop it right before?
Yeah. Sometimes I do that too.
You win. You win that way, Aaron Rand. You're a winner.
I beat the microwave.
You're the winner.
You're listening to Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
That wraps up another edition of The Week That Was here on the iHeartRadio Network, and we will see you next week.
Have a fantastic week.
This has been the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. Listen live on your radio weekday afternoons from 2 to 6 on CJAD 800 or through the iHeartRadio app.